Today I am here with a very interesting piano. Now you might be able to see the name on the Fallboard up there, and as you can see it says Chickering. Now Chickering has been known for a very long time to make quite nice pianos, but this is a particularly special Chickering. Not only is it a very old piano, as you can probably tell, well, Chickering has used that old style logo for a very long time, but you can see by the ornately carved music desk here, as well as the carvings that you might have seen on the lyre and on the legs of this piano, as well as the exotic wood that this is made out of. This is a very old piano. I don't remember the exact year it was made, but it was certainly made perhaps during the 1850s or sometime during that, and it was a very, very old piano indeed. Chickering was founded in 1823, so this is not their earliest piano, but this is one of their earlier pianos than what you usually see in piano stores. A lot of the times you'll see the ones from the 60s or the 70s, but this is a very, very early Chickering piano. I mentioned this exotic wood, and this is actually rosewood. I don't know exactly where it came from or what species it is, but it is some type of rosewood, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I love rosewood. It's a very musical wood. It's used on the fingerboards and fretboards of guitars and the bars of marimbas and xylophones. It's a very musical wood, and it's quite fitting that the case of the piano is covered in a veneer of rosewood. I'll bet you this whole lid prop is just a solid stick of rosewood. It's absolutely gorgeous. This was back in the day when people could afford to use a massive amount of exotic wood on a piano like this. You probably saw the ornately carved legs as well. Even just the side of the piano here has really cool leafy designed patterns, and there's lots of detail into that. There's lots of depth as well. I mean, look how far back in that goes. It's really, really wild, and then it comes up here and it kind of protrudes out from the front of the piano, and there's even some, I don't know what you'd call that, scroll work or something right here on the front of the piano, and then the side here is really awesome. The same, of course, is true on the other side of the piano, and then on the leg here, which you probably already saw, there's it kind of looks like fruit, like grapes or some kind of thing here, and all kinds of really awesome carvings. Obviously solid wood. I don't really know why I knocked on it. They're all solid wood. It has a really interesting pattern down here above the caster. It's got like little, it kind of reminds me of like a pyramid, but with lots more faces onto it, because it's got little creases here where it folds out. It's not perfectly round. Instead, it kind of is like an octagon shape. Very interesting. Also very beautiful. If we take a look down here at the lyre, it also matches the aesthetic of the piano. We can see here it is kind of shaped like a lyre, which is an actual instrument. We have this really cool feathery pattern that's used down here on the pedals. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's got a flat part here where you put your foot on, and then the rest of it has that really cool feathered pattern. And then, of course, the lyre here is this delicately, ornately carved piece of wood that you can literally stick your hand through because it's just completely hollow in this part, but the rest of it is solid wood, and it's rosewood to match the rest of the piano, and it's probably one of the prettiest lyres I have ever seen on the piano. You can also see that the left leg over there also has the same design of the other leg, so of course they all match. If you take another look here up at the Fallboard, we can see that ornate Chickering logo with the beautiful rosewood font, and the Chickering logo just really looks great on that rosewood. It's beautiful. You can get a nice close-up of it there. There you go. That's really nice. The piano, the tops of the keys have been replaced. Unfortunately, they are now plastics instead of ivories. I assume that was done because this is a very old piano, and the ivories probably weren't in the greatest of shape when they picked it up and decided to restore it, so they replaced the key tops to make them look nice and fresh. The Fallboard, of course, closes. It's not a soft close. This was the 1800s, and but it has a very, very nice, heavy feel. I wouldn't be surprised if that's solid rosewood. It probably is a veneer, but who knows? Maybe they decided to make that out of solid rosewood. I mentioned the music desk a little bit earlier, and as I said, it got those really ornate carvings on it as well. It has a little, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder what's that do? I guess maybe that's for holding your music. But this opens up. It has a little latch in the back that will then click into place here. So you can have it at that setting, or you can have it, I guess, why would you even want it leaned way back to that setting? But you have it nonetheless. It's there for you. And then you'd probably want it maybe like there, and then it has your music, and this, I guess, that is the actual shelf for the music. And so then it will come out, your music can sit there, and you can put a book there on this really delicately carved music desk. It's beautiful. I love it. You can kind of see a lyre pattern here, kind of like lyre on the piano, kind of like a real lyre instrument. These would be like the strings, and that would be the frame. So that's a kind of nice detail. I know Steinway does a similar music desk design they did back in the day, and I think they still do art case pianos that kind of have that carved look. I'm not positive though. Also, like I said, the sides of the music desk also are carved, little shelves where you might lay down your music books or something like that. In very early pianos, there would even be little parts that swing out for a candelabra to sit there to illuminate the music. But you can look right through the music shelf and you can see right into the strings of the piano, which I think is kind of interesting. I've never seen a piano that has a carved section right there. Now, if you're familiar with pianos, you might be looking at the inside of this piano and going, what's going on? It looks kind of different. And if you notice on the bass strings, on a modern piano, the bass strings will actually cross over the tenor strings, and they will kind of come more diagonal like this, and that actually gives the strings more length, and it gives the piano more power, and it was a great invention that I believe was invented by Steinway in the later 1800s. But this piano was actually made before that time, and the idea of cross-stringing or overstringing had not been invented, or if it had, Chickering had not picked up on it yet. So the strings on this piano are actually straight strung, and they go just straight back into the back of the piano. And while the bass has a good sound because the strings are very long, you can really hear a difference, especially in the entire timbre of the piano. You can really hear a difference between this concert grand and a modern concert grand. Modern concert grands are much more powerful and much more full, and they project a lot better. This has a very sweet sound and a very beautiful sound, but it's not exactly a powerhouse. It's not something that I think would easily fill the massive concert halls of today. But it does have quite a bit of power, especially for an 1800s piano. I think it's absolutely wonderful. If we take a look at the harp of the frame of this piano as well, you can see that it's a much different design than we normally have today. In modern pianos, you just have a few portholes, and there's a lot more metal here, and there's like diagonal braces and all kinds of stuff in the piano. The braces on this piano simply just go straight parallel with the spine of the piano rather than going diagonal like many modern pianos will have. And as I mentioned, the portholes are a much different design. We have a massive amount of them all in through the harp, and there's also there's not only holes, but there's also like triangles, and they kind of look like the Star Trek logo a little bit, kind of, not really, but a little bit. And so they have lots of different portholes and port triangles and all kinds of neat shapes in here. And if you look at the back of this piano, you'll probably notice something interesting as well. In a modern concert grand or even a baby grand piano, the rim of the piano will curve around just like this. It'll come in just like that, and then it'll straighten out, especially in a concert grand. And then at the back of the piano, it'll round off, and it'll be very round to give the overstrung strings more space to stretch out, as well as the general shape of the piano to be more shapely. Now, harpsichords were constructed differently, and they were made of two pieces of wood in the back that were joined together at a right angle, and the back of the instrument was flat. And when pianos were first invented, in fact, sometimes they would actually dismantle a harpsichord and put a piano inside of the frame. I believe that was done at some point. That's not the case here, but you can see that the shape is kind of reminiscent of that harpsichord shape where it's two pieces of wood joined together. These aren't two pieces of wood. This is bent in place, but you can see that it kind of makes almost a right angle, and then it straightens out at the back of the instrument and then goes back around on the spine of the piano. So it's a much different design than we have today. I believe in some new Bosendorfers, like the Imperial and other pianos, they have that kind of a shape as well, where there's like a crease here as well as a crease in the back, which harkens back to the days of harpsichord making and early pianos, such as this one. So it's kind of interesting to look at the details on what makes this piano different from a modern piano. One thing I find kind of funny about the lid on this piano is how thin it is. If you come up here and look, it's really, really thin. And on a modern concert grand, the lids are really thick and they're really heavy. But this one here is kind of a more delicate, dainty kind of lid, which again, a harpsichord is a very dainty instrument. So as the piano evolved from the harpsichord, it kind of grew and it kind of grew. And the early pianos weren't much different from harpsichords. The very first piano was a very fragile, very delicate instrument that looked a lot different from modern pianos. And this one here was kind of like an evolution of that, where it was more beefy and more powerful than the previous pianoforte, but it still kind of had elements of a harpsichord with a delicate lid as well as the shape of the back down here. One thing I find kind of funny is that this actually has braces like on a Steinway or a Yamaha concert grand, and it has one brace. Steinways have like 4 braces in the lid, but this one here actually has one brace to keep it from sagging too much or actually possibly even breaking in maybe the case of an earthquake or something. I'm not sure that would happen, but Steinway puts braces on here, and Chickering also put a brace here on the piano as well, which I think is kind of cool. Like I mentioned, the lid prop probably is made of a solid stick of rosewood, and there's only one lid prop. In modern pianos, we have 2 lid props, and there's a smaller one that will nest inside of the second one, and then in some pianos there's even a third little tiny lid prop, and there's kind of like we're playing Russian nesting dolls with the lid props in today. But in this one here, it's just one single lid prop, and it's very simple, and it's kind of interesting though that they don't have a second lid prop that nestles inside of the second one. There's also an interesting, I guess it's a serial number or a badge, a model number. It says 33B on the harp there, and it's stamped onto the harp, which I find kind of interesting. So I don't know if the B is what Chickering called the concert grand, or if this is, I'm not exactly sure what that is. So maybe some of you guys can do some research. There's also a number here on the harp. This is 17777, and so that looks like a more modern stamping, although it could be, nah, that looks definitely much more modern. And so I don't know if that could be the serial number, and then when they refinished the piano and they restored it, they removed the old serial number but wrote it down and then put it back on the piano. That could be that case. So if that is the serial number, you guys can let me know in the comments what the age of this piano is. I would be very, very interested. As you can see here, we also have these really big, I believe these are called nose bolts on the piano, and we have a lot of them. On modern concert grands, there's maybe 4 or 5 of them, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different nose bolts. So this is the top of the lid of the Chickering, and as you can see, we're back again with this beautiful rosewood finish. It's absolutely lovely. We can see this interesting design they use here on this part of the lid. It's a bit different, but also kind of similar to what we use in modern pianos today. This here is something to do with the lock that this piano has. I presume that was original from the time, and which is pretty cool. The lock would probably have been, I don't know where you would put the key in, probably up on top. That's probably where the locking mechanism that comes down would be up here, and then it would fit into this little hole, I think. Could be the other way around. But we've got that locking mechanism, and then also the design of the lid as well. It's really beautiful. I love that look of rosewood. It's slightly different from your normal lid style. We do have a little slant down here, kind of like this is a more modern piano. You can see that it also has that kind of a design. So this here has that similar little slant at the edge of the lid, which I find kind of interesting. So by now you're probably curious, what does this piano sound like? It's very old, but it's also been restored, and the strings, of course, have been replaced. I'm sure the original strings from the 1800s would not sound good at all today, but we have brand new strings in it, so this kind of gives you an idea of what this piano would have been like when it was new in the 1800s. If you went back to 1850, if you were to travel back in time and go to a piano dealer and play on a brand new Chickering concert grand, what would it sound like? I think this piano can give you a kind of an idea of what it would have sounded like. So I'm going to play a few different songs on it for you. First, I'm going to play my original composition that I wrote to test out pianos. I play it on more modern pianos. I'm curious to what it sounds like on this piano as well. And then after that, I will play a little bit of classical music, some Bach, and then also even the beginning of the Pirates theme, because I'm curious. That's a very powerful piece, and I'm curious to how that translates to an 1800s era piano. As you can hear, this piano has a very warm, very rich sound, which is really awesome because this piano was so old, but yet even back then they had figured out how to make pianos have such a rich and warm sound that we all know and love today. One thing I find kind of interesting about this piano is that the damper pedal has a lot of travel. If you look at how high the dampers go up off the strings, I'd say they probably go up twice as high as a modern piano damper, and I'm not complaining about that. I actually kind of like that feature because I inevitably end up putting a lot more pedal into my music, and it actually gives it more resonant sound. So that's a kind of an interesting feature. Another thing is this piano only has 2 pedals, and I forgot that, and I was sitting there playing with the left pedal trying to figure out why the sostenuto wasn't working, and then I looked down and realized, oh, it's only got 2 pedals, it's a soft pedal. So now let's play a little excerpt of Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu. I'm going to play a little bit of the middle of the slow section of the piece, because that also kind of has those nice resonant qualities that I like about this piano, and I think that will be a good demo of the middle range of this piano. is just a small little excerpt of the middle section of Fantasy Impromptu, and I think it gives a pretty good idea of what the piano sounds like. It's got a really, really nice, warm sound. I love it. It's great. So now I'm going to play a Bach piece on this piano as well. It was originally written for organ. It was the hymn that had been transcribed by Bach, and I think it works pretty well on the piano, and I'm also interested to how that sounds like on this 1850s-ish piano. One of the things I find really interesting about this piano is that, again, even though it is a straight-strung piano, the bass has a really nice sound to it. Playing it kind of quietly there because it sounds really good when it's played quiet, and I really liked how at the end of that song it kind of went into the bass and it had a really nice full sound. So I find that interesting that even though the piano is still straight strung and it doesn't have the advantage of having longer, more powerful bass strings when it's overstrung, it still sounds pretty good. So for the final song I'm going to play on this piano, it's going to be the loud, bombastic beginning of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme that was written for piano, and so I'm going to play that on it, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. I think it's a loud piece like that that really shows the differences between an old piano like this 1850s era Chickering piano and a new piano like a new Steinway D or a new Hamburg D or a new Bosendorfer 280 or a Fazioli F308, which is a 10-foot piano, but it's still a new awesome Grand sized piano. That loud piece is a really good way to really hear the differences, because when I play this piano quietly, it sounds like a relatively modern, warm piano. But when I go to play it loud, I can really start to hear the differences that this piano has in power, in cleanness, and of tone, and all kinds of stuff like that, that really separates this from a modern piano. A modern piano is really powerful. It's really, a lot of them are really clean as well when you play lots of fast stuff. Whereas this one here doesn't quite have that. It could be because the dampers are traveling up so high, it takes them a little while to fall back down in the strings. But I'm also noticing a massive amount of power difference between this as well as a new Contra-Grand piano. So I think it's really interesting to find a piano like this and to play various songs on it to really hear the differences of how a piano has evolved. I've never quite had this opportunity, so I'm kind of excited about that, and I thought that was a really cool comparison. Now, if you want to go back on my channel and check out some of my other stuff, I've got lots of videos on new Contra-Grand pianos, which are recorded in the exact same way. So you can go listen to this and then listen to that and hear the differences for yourself in the pianos. And also, if you're curious as to where I found this piano, if you want to come see it for yourself, this whole store has an incredible array of pianos and other incredible musical instruments. I'm going to put the store's information down in the description of the video, so you can go check that out. And if you're in this area, I highly advise dropping in. The guy who runs the store is awesome, and he has a really wide selection of rare and unusual pianos and other musical instruments as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video of this really rare, really unique, and very special Chickering Contra-Grand piano. I've never played on a Chickering Contra-Grand, and I've never played on a piano this old. I think so far this has been the oldest piano that I have reviewed on my channel from 1850. I've reviewed a few others that have been quite old from 1897 and the early 1900s, but I haven't reviewed one quite this old, so I think that's really, really cool. So if you liked it, you might want to go check out my channel. As I said, I've got other videos of Contra-Grands, more modern ones that you can compare the sounds against, and I've also got videos of organs and all kinds of other cool instruments on my channel. So if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to go check that out, and if you want to subscribe, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.